primary election is June 26th. Early voting is April 14th to April 21st. And with it, what we're doing in the forum this evening is we are only holding a forum for state and local offices where it's contested, meaning after June 26th, some of the people on this stage and some of the people in the second panel you see later will not be running anymore, because you, by going to the polls, will decide. The first we will do is the Republican candidates from District 36, and they're seated here now. We're not doing the Democratic candidates because they're all going to move automatically to the general election because they're not contested in June. So it's not a partisan Republican or Democrat, it just happens to be who's running. The same thing will happen in the second half of the program, where it'll be the 3 counties council seats, districts 2, 3, and 4. There are 2 or 3 Republican candidates running in each of those races, and therefore only 1 from each district will move from June 26th to the general election. And I know you're all thrilled because we'll hold another forum next October for the final general election, where you'll see anybody who's left running in that forum. I want to introduce some people very quickly who were here this evening. They're running for office, but they're not going to be sitting up here. Judge Will Davis. Judge Davis, good evening. We have all 3 candidates, Republican candidates for the Cecil County State's Attorney's Office, alphabetical order. Amanda Bessis. Please welcome Amanda. Carl Fakler. Carl. And Kevin Urick. Kevin? We have 2 Republican candidates running for the Register of Wills. Incumbent Michael Dawson. Michael? And former Register of Will, running again this year, Lynn Nickel. Lynn? We have 1 candidate running for the on the Republican Party for the Judge of the Orphans Court. Please welcome Bill Harris. Bill. I'm reading some notes at mine. Okay, District 35 does not have any contested in either the Senate or the delegate race, but we are pleased that the Democratic candidate for District 35A, Joe Beth Bowers, is here. Joe Beth, District 35B, current incumbent, Republican, Teresa Riley. Teresa? And we have the incumbent, current Republican state senator from District 36, Senator Stephen Hershey. Steve? If I missed you, it's because you didn't register with Katie. Okay, so I will introduce second half if you're still here and you want to be introduced. And with that. I had to look into my research. I had to do some research to find out who said something. If you can't say something nice, don't say nothing at all. In my research, I couldn't remember whether it's the Cheshire Cat from Alice in Wonderland or Thumper from Bandit. Well, quick research, Wikipedia alerted me that it was Thumper. And that's our forum for this evening. If you hear an answer you like and so forth, we want you to applaud. If you hear an answer you don't like, we would appreciate it. You just remain silent. And with that. And Thumpers, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all, has been upgraded in the 21st century to, and don't put it on Facebook. So, with that. We have 4 panelists, distinct panelists for this evening, and they're going to ask the questions. And with it, first of all, the Senior Vice President from WSFC Bank, Mr. Robert Paulsgrove. Give Bob a hand. The Senior Public Affairs Manager, Delmarva Power, who's a little nervous this evening for other reasons, Ms. Linda Burris. Welcome, Linda. Business Development Director from Aberdeen Community Graham Federal Credit Union, Sharon Pellin. Welcome, Sharon. WL Gore is our sponsor for this evening, so he's wearing many hats this evening, one of which is he's representing the WL Gore. He's also Associate in Government Relations for WL Gore. He also happens to be the Economic Development Commission Chair for Cecil County. Welcome, Mike Ratchford. Mario Gangemi from Grego Ferrara Incorporated is our timer this evening. And here's where you come in. When a questioner asks a question to the people sitting up there, they will give them a time frame for the question. It'll be 120 seconds, 90 seconds, or 60 seconds. Okay? And so what he will do is he'll put up a green card that says go. When there are 30 seconds to go, he'll put up an orange card. Everybody see it? Right down front? We'll wave at you. And then he put up a red card. And when he puts up the red card, you clap. All right, we're going to practice. Mario, put up the orange card. 30 seconds goes by. We don't mean to be rude. Okay, that is not our purpose to cut people off and be rude. But we would like our candidates to be concise, right to the point. We want to make sure we get all the questions in a timely fashion. This evening we have 5 candidates from the Republican Party for a delegate in District 36. Unfortunately, at the 11th hour, literally at the 11th hour last night, Mr. Spiegel said he couldn't be here because of a work conflict with it, so we have 5 of the 6. And we have current delegate, Stephen Ahrens, please. Welcome, Steve. Candidate, Mr. Rick Bowers. Welcome, Rick. Candidate, Mr. Dudley Wicks. Rick Dudley. Candidate, Rick Dudley. I'm sorry. Everybody got that? Everybody got that? Yep. All right. The current delegate, Jeff Price. Welcome, Jeff. And Delegate Jay Jacobs. Welcome, Jeff. Each of these gentlemen picked a card about 3 minutes ago. They have 120 seconds to introduce themselves to you and tell you why they're running, why you should consider them. And I believe number 1 is Mr. Price. Thank you, Carl. Push the button up.
Thank you, Carl. And I want to thank you all for coming out, obviously coming out to listen to our messages as candidates is obviously very, very important for the democratic process, so we're very thankful that you all came out tonight. Jeff Price, current delegate. I'm serving or completing my first term. I lived in Maryland my entire life. Grew up on the Eastern Shore since I was 8 years old, and I went through the entire public school system down in Caroline County, and graduated from Salisbury University degree in economics. And my professional experience includes retail management, real estate, and I also served 2 terms as county commissioner in Caroline County as well. And I guess the reason why I ran 4 years ago as a county commissioner, where we were very, very frustrated with state government. And certainly we wanted to do something about it, and especially when it came to land use control, things like that. And why I'm running again is because the last 4 years we've had a lot of wins. We have an outstanding team here for Cecil County. We have your resident delegate and the chair of Cecil County, Delegate Hornberger. We work very closely with him. We have Delegate Riley here. Delegate Cashley, certainly it's been an honor and privilege to work with my 2 fellow delegates, Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Ahrens. And together as a team, we've had many, many more wins than we've had losses in Cecil County. And certainly we have a lot more to go. We work very, very closely with the Cecil County Council and moving Cecil County forward as well. And certainly I would love to have another 4 years to work with this same team and continue a lot of the progress and a lot of the good things that
we can do. Mr. Bowers, number 2.
Good evening, my name is Rick Bowers, and I'm a lifelong Maryland resident. I'd like to first of all take time to thank all the people who put in their effort and time to make this happen, and thanks to all of you for coming out. We greatly appreciate it. I think I speak on behalf of all of us. And also my wife for putting up with the campaign season. This is not our first time through. I'm not a newbie to this, although many of you have not heard of me. As I said, I'm a lifelong resident. Spent a lot of time, I grew up in the Howard County area and ran in 2006 for House of Delegates in District 13. And what I learned some very valuable lessons from that. Let me digress. Let me explain a little bit about why I believe that I am the best candidate to be your delegate. First of all, if you look on my website, I have made it clear I want to be your voice in Annapolis. I hear oftentimes that people don't know what happens in Annapolis. And I'm not sure if I understand why they say that, because they should be hearing from their delegation. Information should be filtered out. One of my goals would be to make sure that there is a clear line of communication between what's going on in Annapolis and your front doorstep. So I'm here to be your voice in Annapolis. My professional training, my wife and I pastored a church together for many years in the Baltimore area. I think a lot of that experience lends itself to legislating. You're dealing in a lot of tough decision-making processes, working with a lot of people in some very difficult times. I believe that my experience lends itself to hearing what you have to say, trying to understand and then articulate it and represent you. With me, you're going to get God, family, and country. I make no bones about it. I believe that this country was founded on Judeo-Christian principles, and I believe in order to successfully have a representative republic, as we do, you need to have some understanding, and my pastoral experience lends itself to that. Additionally, I'm currently the vice chair of the Queen Anne's County Central Committee, and I thank you for your time.
Mr. Aaron. Thank you. First of all, I can't tell you how appreciative I am of seeing this many people out for a candidate forum, and I want to thank the Chamber and Carl for all the work they put into this. My name is Steve Aarons. I am currently a delegate in the 36th District, along with my other members of Team 36, Delegate Geist and Delegate Jacobs. It's kind of humbling to be here. It's kind of humbling to be appointed. It's humbling to be elected, and hopefully it'll be humbling to be re-elected. I'm the father of 2 children. I got a daughter that's 20 years old, attending the Honors College of University of Maryland, and a son that's going to Kent Island High School. It's great kids, great grades. And currently I work with my wife as a real estate agent in Queen Anne's County. And my background, along with the real estate, consists of like technology and technology support, along with hospitality industry. I served as the chairman of the Queen Anne's County Chamber of Commissioners. In that capacity, I think that experience as a commissioner has given me at least the insight to understand a little bit better about how local government and the state need to be acting together and how they need to work together. I have the luxury of serving on the Economic Matters Committee in Annapolis, and I've also in my first term been selected as the minority whip on my committee. In that, I serve in the capacity of some subcommittees, the alcoholic beverages, consumer protection, and I do get to serve on a joint audit committee in Annapolis, which is pretty interesting. To date, in my first term, I've been endorsed by the Maryland Farm Bureau. I have a 92 rating with the NRA, received a 100% rating from the Maryland Business for Representative Government, an excellent rating from the American Conservative Union, along with an all-star rating in Maryland Retailers. It's been an honor and a privilege to work with Governor Hogan in Annapolis and to support some of his agenda, and I look forward to doing so in the next term. Thanks.
Good evening. Push that button up.
I got her for she'll do it. There's good. Thank you. First of all, thank you all for coming out this evening and appreciate the Chamber, Cecil Chamber, again hosting a forum for us to be able to inform the voters, especially Cecil County, you know, of our candidacy and the reason why we're running for office. First of all, my name is Delegate J. Jacobs. I'm seeking my 3rd term. I'm one of the 2 senior delegates from the Eastern Shore. We have one in the Northern Shore, one in the Southern Shore. Prior to being elected to the House of Delegates, I spent 14 years in local government, 12 of which I was the mayor of Rock Hall, and Maryland Critical Areas Commission. Since I've been a delegate, I 5 years ago, became the chair of the House Republican Caucus. 4 years ago, I was appointed to AELR, the Regulatory Oversight Commission. For 8 years, I've been on Nutrient Management Advisory Board. For the last 4 years, I've been on Maryland Dairy Oversight Commission, and a few others that I haven't mentioned. But it's been a good time. It's been very active for me. You know, seniority has its benefits in getting into these positions where getting into the back room in a committee like Environment and Transportation that I'm on, able to really influence some of the bills and salvage bills for some of my colleagues. Seeking a third term because I care about the values of the Eastern Shore, fourth generation, and half farmer, half fisherman. I always call myself a purebred. So, and I'm also a small business owner and have been for I guess the last 40 years. So, thank you very much.
Mr. Delegate.
So I was not the only one that had a mistake. My name is Wick Dudley, not Dudley Wicks, although that's a forgivable mistake. It happens a lot. I grew up on a farm down in Queenstown in Queen Anne's County. I actually grew up in the same house my father grew up. He still farms that actually. And I went to college down in St. Mary's County, St. Mary's College. Graduated, I spent a couple years in the marine industry doing a lot of fiberglass repairs and bottom painting, that kind of thing. If you've got engine problems, I can tell you what's wrong with it, but I cannot fix it, so go to someone else. After that, I decided to go to law school. Why not? The last 2 years, I'm graduating in 3 days, so I'm very excited about that. And the last 2 years, and while I was a full-time student, I worked about 20 hours a week at a law firm in Baltimore, defending police officers in civil litigation and administrative hearings called trial boards. So anyone who's been following the news lately can probably tell that there was never a dull moment in that office. And now that I'm graduating, I want to come back to the shore. I think I'll be a zealous advocate. I know there won't be anyone harder working in Annapolis if I'm elected. And I'm very appreciative for the time to be here today, and I will yield the rest of my time.
Thank you. Thank you. They've been having a debate for the last week about people should apologize. Mr. Dudley, that mistake was mine and mine alone, and I accept full responsibility for it. Okay? So because I learned long ago to screw up, admit it, and move on with it. Thank you all very much. Now, for your listening pleasure, they're not going to all five answer the same question at the same time. We're going to go, you're going to find out they don't have near as much time as they had to 120 seconds. And with it, I'm going to introduce the people asking the questions the first time through. After that, they know their order, and they will ask them in that order. Mr. Paulsgrove.
Delegate Aarons, you're up first. What are the two most pressing issues that will face the General Assembly during the 2019 session, and what is the impact on Cecil County citizens? You have 90 seconds to answer.
Probably one.
There's a delay, I have to turn it on.
Turns on after a little bit. Probably one of the biggest ones for the state is going to be the gerrymandering. And I think in next year, that's going to affect not just Cecil County, but it's going to have a huge effect on some of the other counties trying to get the disproportionate number of voting. And if you ever looked at our congressional districts, you'll understand why gerrymandering is pretty important to us. The other one I think, and I'm going to speak more towards my committee, which is going to come up, is going to be the fight for 15, the minimum wage. And in an area where we are right now, as far as the Chamber of Commerce and most of us being businesses, we can see the impact that some of the minimum wage increases has had on us in the past. I think that, along with paid sick leave, and you're going to see a continued push coming after businesses. And when you start doing the cumulative effect of the minimum plus the paid sick leave, plus I think you'll see mandatory scheduling coming potentially again at us next year. Those are probably the two biggest things I think in my committee that I will see. Thank you.
You're going to pull.
Mr. Dudley, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'll repeat the question. What are the two most pressing issues that will face the General Assembly during the 2019 session? And What is the impact on Cecil County citizens?
I would agree with the redistricting. That's something that really makes my blood boil and is probably the reason why I jumped in the race to begin with. The fact that politicians are able to choose their voters and not the other way around really just kind of disgusts me. We're the only nation on the planet where that's the case. And with the census coming up in 2020, I really would like to get that changed before then. The second most important and compelling thing would probably be healthcare. That's a really difficult issue right now. The federal healthcare law is a mess. We've got a very difficult situation. Following the Trump administration's decision to axe a 2.5 insurance tax at the federal level, that was then kicked down to the state level. I supported Governor Hogan's decision to add that tax at the state level, which prevented your premiums from jumping from 30 to 60%. I believe the other incumbents at this table voted against that, but that was a bill by Governor Hogan to keep your insurance premiums down, and thank you very much.
Ms. Kellum will ask the second question.
Mr. Bowers, do you think state government is too large? Please explain your answer. You will have 60 seconds to do so.
Thank you for that question. Yes, I do believe state government is too large. I believe that our taxes are being spent on things that not all of us agree with. I think that what we need to do is look at areas that we can trim without cutting necessary services. I also think we have to look at the constitutional view of what does state government owe to its people, and then begin to trim things back from there. Does that address your question in full? Was there another portion? Very good. Thank you for the question.
Delegate Rice, same question. I'll repeat it. Do you think state government is too large? Please explain your answer, and you'll have 60 seconds to do so.
All right, very good. Yeah, actually, I serve on the Appropriations Committee, so for the last 4 years, I saw directly how our taxpayer money is being spent, and it's been extremely frustrating for me. And that's one of the biggest frustrations that I do have on the Appropriations Committee, to see money go into programs that are so wasteful. But we do have, fortunately for us, we have Governor Hogan, who actually creates the budget and the operating budget. And fortunately, the General Assembly can't increase that. And fortunately for us as well, that budget increases at a slower rate than our economy is actually growing. So hopefully over time, if he's reelected, we'll actually start seeing the growth of our government actually, we'll see it shrink over time, hopefully, as long as we can get him reelected and hopefully our team reelected. Thank you.
Mr. Rice?
Delegate Jacobs. This question is sort of a follow-up to comments that Delegate Ernst spoke to and Mr. Dudley, but press down on a little bit. Governor Hogan has tried unsuccessfully to establish a neutral, independent entity to propose state and national elections in Maryland for legislative redistricting. Do you believe this is a good idea? Why or why not?
Yes, I absolutely do agree. Maryland is one of the worst gerrymandered states in the United States. They use us as the poster child for the most gerrymandered districts. And I believe if you ask everyone sitting up here tonight, they'd all agree that this is terrible, the gerrymandering. And I think Governor Hogan's efforts, and he had a bipartisan panel that was put together that's done the work to this point, and the end result is a nonpartisan, independent panel that would certainly make, I would think, the appropriate decisions based on the right conditions, contiguous conditions, contiguous areas, and not have something that you throw, looks like you threw it up against the wall and it's stuck, But I absolutely agree with his efforts into an independent commission.
Ms. Burrows?
Delegate Grist, what are the two most pressing issues that will face the General Assembly during the 2019 session, and what is the impact of each on Cecil County residents? and you'll have 90 seconds to answer.
All right, thank you. Again, redistricting, I have to say that's probably the number one issue. Again, the census is in 2020, so we will need legislation during this next session in order to address how we're going to go through this process. An independent commission, the governor's had bills in each of the last several years. We fought as hard as we could to help get those bills passed. Unfortunately, we are the minority in Annapolis, but what we'll continue again this year. It's very, very important for us. We have just our District 36. We represent the second most people in the entire state, but we have the largest area-wise, which that's not fair to the residents in Cecil County at all. So that it's a challenge for us. If we were to redistrict fairly, the Republicans and the minority party could probably pick up 5 or 6 seats, even if it's just districted fairly, and we could certainly use that. We need that help, and the governor, again, he's done a great job. He vetoes the bills that he should be vetoing, but unfortunately, it's a lost cause for us when a few days later, the majority party they override his veto. And if we can just pick up, I think 6 or 7 seats in the House, we'll be able to sustain his veto next time. So that's important for Cecil County.
Okay, I'm going to intercede here. I think there's people one question together. Okay, so I think what we're going to do is we're going to change up, and I'll raise a new question while you all are doing your job. So we'll go to question 3. We'll drop in at question 3 and start there. And that starts.
The reason he's saying that is question 2 was to repeat about gerrymandering.
Exactly. I'm sorry. Thank you for explaining that. So I think we're going to go with you again, Ms. Burris. Question 3. Did you see where I am?
Yes.
Okay.
Delegate Jacobs, what will you do to ensure that Cecil County has greater opportunity to establish new businesses and strengthen existing businesses? And you'll have 90 seconds.
Whenever I'm asked about the biggest challenge we have over in this entire, in fact, the entire 36th district is we border tax-free Delaware. It's one of the biggest problems we have. And, Cecil County, you ride right up to, we're basically right on that line. And it's the Maryland tax and regulation conditions are not the same as Delaware. So we certainly have to be cognizant of putting Maryland and especially Cecil County, and these counties that border these tax-free states in a much more competitive position. And we talked about that in Annapolis before, these border states are just killed by, in our case, tax-free Delaware. One of the things we've tried for the last couple of years is adjusting the corporate tax rate, tried to lower that. That's another thing that we're going to be working on. It's just a constant effort to try and stay one step ahead rather than, being on the defense mode. It'd be better to be in the proactive mode. So, it's something that we do talk about as a team, as a delegation, in trying to, make it very clear in Annapolis that we're up at this very tough competitive level.
Thank you. Delegate Grist, I'm going to ask you the same question. I'll repeat it, and you'll have the same amount of time, 90 seconds. What will you do to ensure that Cecil County has greater opportunity to establish new businesses and strengthen existing businesses?
It's not unique to Cecil County, but if we were to look anywhere on the eastern shore or the central part of the state, western Maryland, southern Maryland, it doesn't really matter. It seems like workforce development is probably the biggest challenge that any of us have. There are plenty of jobs out there, but it's finding that qualified workforce that's the biggest challenge. And so we do have to support our community colleges. We do have to support our education in a way that they're spending that money efficiently, and there's accountability there. But we do have to do a better job preparing our young people for the workforce that we have now and for the jobs that are actually available. For too many years we've tried to prepare our kids, and we wanted to prepare our kids for college. But oftentimes a lot of the jobs that are out there are very, very good paying jobs where they can go right out of high school and make $30,000 or $40,000, $50,000 a year welding or doing electrical work or doing a lot of this work that businesses are screaming for right now, but they can't find that workforce. So technical training is very, very important. Vocational training is very, very important. I think we need to really double down on that and support our community colleges. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to jump in and catch back up, and then we'll go back and continue again. And this question will be for Mr. Bowers and Delegate Ahrens. The Kerwin Commission is due to deliver a report in December 2018 that indicates public education is severely underfunded at both the state and local levels. Kerwin Commission, are you all familiar with the Kerwin Commission? Okay. Delegate Ahrens, what's your perspective of the Kerwin Commission?
I guess education in general, when you talk about the Kerwin Commission, you talk about education, I think you're going to start looking at some of the things that we need to do and we've been trying to do in Annapolis to rethink education and rethink the approach to education. Not only at the lower levels, but also in the colleges. I think a lot of your colleges and universities, you'll see that we're having an extremely high rate of failure, if you will. And one of the biggest problems we have with the commission and within the education system is bringing our students out of high school to where they're actually qualified to be in college. I think the number or the rate of having to take remedial math in our four-year college is somewhere around 60%, 58 to 60%. And I think as we move forward and as we start rethinking, maintenance of effort has always been a huge issue for us within the system. It's been something that we're not sure where it's working. If you look at a place like Kent County and you look at some other areas where the student population is actually decreasing, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're decreasing the cost of running those schools. So as we've talked about in previous times in the General Assembly, something needs to be done in how we're addressing that and what the methodology is moving forward as far as how we're going to address the schools.
Thank you. Mr. Bowers, I'll repeat the question for you. The Kerwin Commission is due to deliver a report in December of 2018 that will indicate that public education is severely underfunded at both the state and local levels throughout the state of Maryland. Do you have a perspective of that in 90 seconds?
Thank you. You know, it seems that government's first priority is to add to itself. And I think that we live in a we the people environment here where we should have a little bit more control over exactly what happens within our schools. To spend the amount of money per child and to see them come out of school and need the remedial help to get into college and pass math and science scores is just appalling. We do need to get involved in more technical vocational training. I agree with Delegate Grist on that. I think we're missing the mark with that. We're strapping our kids. Our society shames them if they don't go to college and take on $100,000 or $200,000 worth of debt. And for a lot of young adults, that simply isn't the path that they're most adept to. So for that reason, I'd like to see more vocational training. I think we're spending plenty per student. I do think we need to cut it back a little bit. And you know, if our education, if when you look at who goes to public school versus private school, anyone who has the ability to send their children to private school takes that opportunity to do so. And that's a telltale sign to me that the school system in the public sector has failed. And I'd like to see us not investing more than half of our budget into a system that is currently failing. Thank you.
Mr. Rafferty.
Delegate Ernst, you're back up and back here. What is your current impression of the actions that Cecil County government leadership is taking to enhance its image in regard to a healthy business climate for new and existing businesses? You have 90 seconds to answer.
Actually, I think Cecil County's taken some very proactive steps to move forward with business. I think there was just a article or something came out recently where you're trying to do some special tax incentives and what have you for the businesses as far as moving forward. I think last year legislation for the casino, we looked at some legislation trying to encourage that. And I think just in some insider stuff that's going on, I think one of the focuses has been the infrastructure coming down on Route 40, trying to build that infrastructure so businesses can come here, businesses can look at it. There's been a tremendous push from Cecil as far as the toll booths trying to get in and out of Cecil County. I think that they're really pushing hard for that to happen. We've looked at some areas with regard to bringing people over here and businesses and what have you. You look at the water system down in Earlville and the types of things that the commissioners or the council members have supported in the past. All in all, I think that the path to getting into Baltimore and getting out of Baltimore needs to be refined. I think with the work of some of us in the General Assembly, we're pushing to move that toll booth a little bit further once we go to electronic tolling. It's an interesting dynamic, but Cecil County is not necessarily facing the problems by themselves. I think everything in the rural counties or outside of Baltimore is having similar issues. It's transportation costs have gone up and all the costs are rising, so it's better to keep your business close.
Mr. Bowers, same question. What is your current impression of the actions that Cecil County government leadership is taking to enhance its image in regard to a healthy business climate for new and existing businesses? You have 90 seconds, sir.
I think anytime a local government takes it upon themselves to make it easier to do business, I think they've done a good thing, not only for the citizens, but for the businessmen and women and the future generations of Cecil County residents or residents in general. I have to admit to you, I'm not as familiar perhaps as I could be on that particular issue. I apologize for that, but I will tell you this. I understand that Cecil County could feel a little bit neglected being up here at the top end of the district. I hear when I'm up here that they don't know a lot about what's going on within the district from Annapolis. I have already planned in my mind, should you elect me, I'm going to be present in every single county on a regular basis so that I can hear and learn more about your jurisdiction and how I can make your life a little bit easier and a better place to be in Cecil County. Thank you.
Mr. Dudley, same question. What is your current impression of the actions that Cecil County government leadership is taking to enhance its image in regard to a healthy business climate for new and existing businesses? 90 seconds, please.
Well, I would have to agree and apologize that I'm not particularly familiar with Cecil County. I'm working to get better. I've been coming up here, I've been coming to help in Chesapeake City and talking to folks. But as far as what the current county leadership have been doing, I do not know. But I think whenever a county makes it easier to promote businesses here, then that's a good thing. Promoting tourism, making the roads and infrastructures better, I'd like to see that. And that's my answer. Thank you.
I'm going to ask one more question to catch up, and then you'll finish up with your question, Mr. Burns. Okay, I'm not surprised. Delegate Grice, Delegate Jacobs, and Mr. Dudley, you're all going to answer this question. It's the one that your two colleagues up here already answered, but I think it would be fair. The current commission is due to deliver a report in December of 2018 that indicates that public education is severely underfunded at both the state and the local levels. Your perspective of this report, we'll start with Delegate Grice, Delegate Jacobs, Mr. Dudley.
Thank you, Carl. Yeah, I'm going to certainly, before I certainly take a position on that issue, I'm going to wait till the report actually comes out. I served on the 21st Century School Construction Commission over the past 2 years, and the final report on that was that we're underfunding school construction by $400 million a year. Of course, I would fully expect that the direction from the leadership in the General Assembly would be for the chair of and the staff of the Kerwin Commission to do the same, that they're underfunded as well. So I would want to look at the details of that commission. I certainly don't, the current commission, if it's made up very similar to the NOC commission, where they do have really good people who are in education, from all over the state, and they certainly know more about public education than I do. So I'm certain they have a lot of really good ideas that are going to be in that report. But to just make a blanket statement that we don't spend enough on education, I find that challenging. I think that I would much prefer to go into this looking at finding ways to do more with less when it comes to education. That was sort of the mantra that we had on the 21st Century School Construction Commission, because we know that we have a limited amount of revenue and a limited amount of resources to spend on that. And I can tell you, I could go back into the county where I grew up, and I can probably go through there and find some efficiencies as well. So I would rather start there before we just make an assumption that we're underspending in education. So thank you.
Delegate Jacobs.
Okay, so,
You want me to read it again?
no, it's okay. You know, the interesting thing about the Kerwin Commission is, and like my colleague, I wouldn't want to take a position until we get the final report. But it's, the funny thing about it is that it hasn't gone well so far, and one of the most upset counties is Montgomery County. So since we're over here in the small district, you know, especially in Kent County where I live, they're very concerned about the findings of the Kerwin Commission. You know, for us over here, the fact that the biggest county has got big concerns on how the money, you know, how the distribution goes, it bodes well to have a much more in-depth conversation within the commission to be fair when the numbers actually do, you know, are presented. And like I said, because they are up in the air right now, it's a lot of debate going on, from what I understand, over how the funding looks. And Montgomery is very upset, which makes me happy. We also, if I'm not mistaken, earmarked $200 million in the BRFA in regards to the Kerwin Commission findings as well.
Mr. Dudley?
Yes, thank you. In my mind, one of the biggest issues concerning the funding of public schools in the state of Maryland is the difference in the levels of funding per pupil within the different counties. So for example, in Baltimore City right now, per pupil spending I think is nearly double what it is in Caroline or Kent County. So moving forward, I think we can shift funds, allocate funds more evenly through the state so that each student, regardless of where they live, gets adequate and similar spending. I think that would go a long way to smoothing out and alleviating the spending discrepancies.
Thank you. Ms. Bella?
Mr. Dudley, do you think state government is too large? Please explain your answer. You'll have 60 seconds to provide a response.
Well, I will echo a similar or familiar Republican tune, and it's certainly in this state, the state government is too large, and that's probably not the case in other states. You know, whether you're farming or starting a business or really just trying to do anything, the friends of mine, they were very liberal. They live in Baltimore City. They started a kombucha tea company. It's called Wild Kombucha. I'm not advertising, but they went to start this business, and then you start realizing all the regulations. They tried to do in the city. The city didn't want them. They had to move to the county where there's fewer regulations, and now they're kind of moving right on economic issues because of their experiences. So yes, in the state of Maryland, state government is too big. It needs to be simplified, fewer taxes, fewer regulations, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you.
Delegate Jacobs, same question and time. Do you think state government is too large? Please explain your answer. You will have 60 seconds to respond.
Yes. It is definitely, I think you would get that answer from either one of us up here. You know, one of the main reasons I ran for the House delegates to begin with is, you know, didn't like what was going on. You know, I came in my first term on the second term of Governor O'Malley, you know, with all these enormous tax hikes and regulations, you know, killing business. You know, all of that was a motivation for me to even run to begin with. And, you know, when you look at the size of some of these departments and look at the bureaucracy, it's no wonder that you know, it's hard to sometimes get a complete answer by one person. But, you know, coming out of local government, I always use this analogy, you know, pothole is a pothole. And when you're in local government, you just fix it. I wish I could have finished that. But it's not that way in Annapolis.
Ms. Burris? Question 4? I'm sorry, Mr. Paul's.
All right, it's time to liven things up here. This is a grand finale for this group. You each have 60 seconds to answer this question, and we're going to start with Delegate Aarons. Do you support allowing cannabis to become available for recreational use?
No. I could go on and on. You know, you sit in a lot of these meetings, you look at the opioid abuse, and you got to take in and dwell on some personal experience when you start looking at drugs of any kind. And I look at cannabis and I listen to some of the stories that we hear. And if you talk to anybody within the state with our opioid problems we have, and most everybody that's met with a group of people that are addicts or have been addicted at some point in their life, they sit back and say, my gateway drug was marijuana or cannabis. To me, and I have seen personal experience where some of this stuff comes out, I don't believe we need to do this. We just this year outlawed powdered alcohol, but we're going to allow marijuana. And those types of things, I don't think we need to support a habit, and we don't need to support something that's already causing enough problems. I think there's enough healthcare issues out there. They're going to find out and discover some of the impact of some of what marijuana can do to you and how it can affect you. It's just not something that I'm willing to support, and probably not something I'm going to support in my lifetime. Thank you.
Mr. Dudley, I don't think I have to repeat the question.
Yeah, I actually disagree. I represent a not very popular wing in the Republican Party right now, which would be what I call the social libertarian wing. The philosophy is that if your actions don't harm someone else and the government has no rationale to prohibit that action. I believe that this is the land of the free and the home of the brave, but also the land of the free. And to the extent that someone wants to smoke marijuana, it doesn't bother me. I don't care what they do.
Mr. Bauer, same question.
Thank you. I have to look back at my views. Medical marijuana many years ago, I was very opposed to it. But I listened, I learned, and now I have family and friends who have benefited from the medical use of cannabis. Therefore, my jury is out at the moment. I would like to study more. I would not rule it out at this point because I simply am not convinced that I know enough. I wouldn't compare it to the powdered alcohol because alcohol is something that can build up in your system and cause effects that you can't build up marijuana like you can alcohol and cause the same problems. So my jury's out at this point. I'd certainly like to hear a lot more about it and make an intelligent decision based on what I hear from the people I represent. If I'm supposed to be your voice in Annapolis, I need to hear your voice. So when this situation comes up, please make your voice known.
Thank you. Delegate Bryce?
Thank you. I too would consider myself a social libertarian, but I disagree that recreational marijuana doesn't impact other people. I think that there is clear evidence out there. If you were to look at a lot of the data that's coming from Washington, you look at a lot of data that's coming from Colorado, you're going to see that there are more fatalities, more accidents, there are more people that are pedestrian accidents. I mean, there's a lot, it does impact other people, and it is considered a gateway drug as well. So based on that, and it still is a federal prohibition as well. And obviously some states can supersede federal law when it comes to recreational marijuana, I suppose. But for now, certainly unless we see different data out there and its impact on the general population, I would continue to support prohibition on recreational marijuana.
I do not support legalization of recreational marijuana. I did support medical marijuana. We have a fine facility here in Cecil County. Met many people who convinced me, because I was a little leery of even medical marijuana, and I was convinced by many people that it changed their life and made a difference in their life. But as far as legalization of recreational marijuana, I'm totally against it. I think it's a gateway drug. You know, you look up here at some of the drug problems we have in Cecil County. we're not going to help it by encouraging something that's prohibited to become legal. I think it just exacerbates the problem. So if my vote is the one that's going to pass it, it's not going to pass. Thank you.
Please join me in thanking each of these gentlemen for participating in this board. I would say that this is not the only information you should be seeking regarding if you have a vote in District 36, you get to vote for 3 delegates if you're a Republican, and I would suggest you do even more homework regarding that. And with it, at this point, they'll have 60 seconds to summarize your candidacy, tell you why they should vote for you, and we're going to start with Delegate Jacobs. 60 seconds. Why should we vote for you?
Start the timer yet?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully you will send me back to Annapolis for a 3rd term. There a lot of business that needs to be done to protect the people of the Eastern Shore. I've been on the Natural Resources and Ag Subcommittee for 8 years. A big part of our district is agriculture. I'm in Transportation Subcommittee as well. In the ranking Republican in the committee. And, I think that I'm a good representative for the business vote as well as agriculture, seafood, etc. I'm a well-rounded representative, and hopefully I get to return for my 3rd term. Thank you.
Mr. Bowers.
Thank you very much. I think you should vote for me because what you're going to get from me is smaller government, low taxes. I'm going to preserve your rights. I'm not going to be weak on the Second Amendment. I'm not going to be weak on lowering taxes. You'll find consistency with me. You'll find an open door. If you need to get something to Annapolis, I would suggest send me to Annapolis, and I will give you my cell phone number, and when you need to call me, you contact me. I think that we need to have transparency. And I need you to visit rickbowersmaryland.com to get a little bit more information about my experience. We were given 90 seconds to introduce ourselves, and unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess my experience supersedes 90 seconds. So please, rickbowersmaryland.com, and I thank you in advance for your consideration.
Delegate Grice.
Thank you, Carl. I led off by talking about your Cecil County team. Many of you all are business owners, and if you have employees who are doing a great job and they're making your business money, why on earth would you want to get rid of them, right? You have a great team here in Cecil County, and so that's the first reason why I'm asking you for re-election. And the second reason too is I'm asking for my 2nd term. It does take a little bit of time to go through that learning curve, to be able to go to Annapolis and earn the respect of your colleagues over there, because there are a lot of legislators in Annapolis where when they stand up and talk, people don't listen, just because they haven't earned that respect. And that takes time. My colleagues, they've been there a few more years than I have. They're farther along when it comes to building that respect. And I can tell you that after 4 years, last year and again this year, progressively we're getting a lot more done. And I can tell you that a 2nd term, if you guys give me a 2nd term, we're going to get a heck of a lot more done.
Mr. W.
Yeah, look, I know and love the shore more than anything else in the world. I want to go to Annapolis and represent you. I know if I go, I will be the hardest working man there. I jumped in the race because no one else was challenging the incumbents, and I always feel that a little bit of competition is a good thing. Send me to Annapolis. You won't find a harder worker person there. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Delegate Ahrens.
Thank you. Once again, I want to thank you for your questions. I want to thank you for putting on the forum. If you have any additional questions or need clarification, don't forget to grab a hold of me before I leave. I'm hoping to continue to represent you as one of your District 36. I think it's been said to us a number of times that Cecil County has never seen such representation, and I think this Team 36 has done one whale of a job. And during my term, I've taken pride in actually addressing the constituent issues, which sometimes we all forget when we're dealing with government issues over there. And we make every effort to get the answers and find the solutions to the problems. And I think our delegation has been one of the most respected in Annapolis, which is a good thing. I've been a solid voice for our whole district in Annapolis, for the needs of the district, and for all Maryland for that matter. I've supported the governor with no tax increases, reducing of the tolls, reducing of fees, along with record funding for education, and really worked hard on helping to address the opioid problem we have in our state. Now, continue to keep the priorities of people in the forefront. I will uphold the values of the Constitution, and I will fight bad legislation, and I will fight the tax increases. Thank you.
Please join me in giving a round of applause. We're going to take a 10